Buffalo, we need to talk because if the first snap of the preseason is any indication, the Bills didn't just show up to Highmark Stadium's grand opening. They showed up to make a statement. And while the scoreboard told one story, the whispers coming out of one Bills drive are telling an even bigger one, a story that involves one of the most terrifying pass rushers on the planet, potentially wearing red, white, and blue by the time the leaves change color. So buckle up, Bills Mafia, because we've got a lot of ground to cover, and every single bit of it points to one thing. This team believes the window is open right now, and they are not messing around. Let's start where the fireworks actually happened. On the field, under the lights of a brand new building in front of a crowd that had waited years to see football in this shiny new version of home. The Buffalo Bills opened their preseason slate against the Carolina Panthers, and when the final whistle blew, Buffalo walked away with a comfortable win, setting the tone for what many hope is a special season. But forget the final score for a second, because the real headline wasn't about who won. It was about how fast the offense clicked. It only took three plays for this offense to look like it belonged on a poster. Khalil Shakir got things rolling with a 21-yard grab that shoved Buffalo deep into Carolina territory, and just 2 snaps later, Josh Allen turned around, found a wide-open target, and delivered a rocket for 32 yards. That target was DJ Moore, the big-name addition Buffalo brought in to give Allen another elite weapon, and folks, the connection was instant. According to the numbers, Moore had a jaw-dropping 14 yards of separation from the nearest defender on that play. 14 yards. That's not a receiver getting open. That's a receiver being left alone in a different area code. And Moore made the Panthers pay for it, turning the catch into a chunk play that had Bills fans in the building buzzing before the first quarter had even wrapped. That wasn't a one-off either. In the limited time the starters were on the field, Moore was targeted 4 times and hauled in 3 catches for 61 yards, both team highs. Josh Allen, never one to hide his excitement, made it clear afterward that he's thrilled to have another dangerous playmaker in his arsenal, someone he can go to early, often, and without hesitation. And when you stop and think about what Buffalo is building here, it starts to feel almost unfair to opposing defenses. You've already got Khalil Shakir working the middle of the field with that reliable chain-moving presence. You've got Keon Coleman bringing size and contested catchability. You've got James Cook, fresh off arguably the best running back season in football, threatening defenses on the ground and out of the backfield. And now you're adding DJ Moore, a receiver who can take the top off a defense and manufacture yards after the catch out of thin air. That's not a receiving core anymore. That's a nightmare rotation, and Buffalo proved it instantly, ripping off 5 different plays of more than 10 yards in just 2 series with the starting unit on the field. Then, just when you thought the highlight reel was over, Josh Allen did something only Josh Allen can do. He escaped a collapsing pocket, extended the play with his legs, bought an extra 2 or 3 seconds that shouldn't exist in the modern NFL, and found Keon Coleman tucked into the back corner of the end zone for a touchdown. It was vintage Allen, instinctive, chaotic, and somehow perfectly controlled all at once. By the time the starters checked out for the night, Buffalo was already comfortably ahead and the tone had been set. Now look, it's preseason. Nobody's handing out trophies in August, and one strong quarter against a Carolina defense doesn't guarantee anything come January. But if you're looking for signs, actual tangible signs that this offense is going to be must-watch television in 2026, you got them. Allen looked sharp and comfortable. Moore looked like he'd been in the building for years, not weeks. Shakir did what Shakir always does, and Coleman found the end zone in the most Josh Allen way possible. But the story of night one wasn't only about the players. It was also about the man calling the shots from the sideline for the very first time. Joe Brady stepped into his role as Buffalo's head coach. And this wasn't just a normal coaching debut. This was a debut inside a brand new stadium with an entirely restructured coaching staff and every single moving part of the operation being tested in real time. By his own account, Brady walked away feeling good. He liked the communication, he liked the tempo, he liked how the operation flowed from the booth to the sideline to the huddle, but he was also honest about the small stuff. where he wanted to physically stand during the game, how he wanted his sideline organized, even the buttons on his own headset. It sounds minor, almost silly, but any Bills fan who's watched a game get derailed by a communication breakdown knows exactly why those tiny details matter. Brady was locked in on every piece of it, taking mental notes on things he didn't love and wanted to fix before the games start counting for real. And in one of the more entertaining moments of the night, Brady got his first taste of life or death, real-time head coaching decisions when he threw his first career challenge flag. Buffalo was already up big in the fourth quarter, so the stakes were about as low as they get, but the process was real. He challenged a down-by-contact ruling, and afterward, Josh Allen, with a grin you could practically hear through the interview, admitted he was the one in Brady's ear pushing him to throw that flag. It's a small, funny moment, but it's also a window into something bigger. This quarterback and this head coach are already talking, already collaborating, already building the kind of shorthand that great QB coach duos need when the games actually matter. Now let's talk about the side of the ball that might carry the most long-term intrigue of all, the defense. Buffalo has poured serious draft resources into young defensive talent over the last 2 cycles, and against Carolina, that investment started to show real on-field dividends. 2 of Buffalo's 4 sacks on the night came directly from players drafted in 2025 and 2026. Deion Walker, a 4th-round pick from last year's class, got home on Bryce Young in the first half, finishing his night with a tackle for loss and 3 total stops. He's talked openly about the grind he put in during the offseason, and you could see that development translating directly onto the field. Joe Brady was clearly impressed too, praising Walker's maturity, his size, his length, and his versatility up front, the exact traits you want to hear a head coach gushing about when it comes to a building block defensive lineman. Then there's T.J. Parker, who made his own mark in the third quarter by using pure power to beat a tight end in pass protection and get to the quarterback. It was Parker's first time playing in front of the Bills Mafia crowd, and by his own admission, the moment felt amazing, but what stood out even more than the sack itself was his mindset afterward. He wants to study the film, find his mistakes, and keep grinding. That's not the attitude of a rookie who thinks he's arrived. That's the attitude of a player who wants to become great, and it's exactly the kind of mentality Buffalo needs from its young core moving forward. The secondary got in on the fun, too. A second-year defensive back racked up 4 tackles. A rookie cornerback led the entire team in tackles for the night. And one of the most electric plays of the game came from a rookie defensive back who read a screen pass, jumped the route from behind the line of scrimmage, and came away with an interception. Joe Brady didn't hold back his praise, calling it a genuine wow play from a first-year player. When you zoom out, the picture becomes clear. Buffalo's recent draft classes are starting to pay off in real time, and this defense, which has been the swing factor in some of the franchise's most heartbreaking losses, might finally be building real depth and juice from within. Now, away from the preseason opener, let's talk about a name that deserves a spotlight all its own, James Cook. Buffalo's running back has officially climbed all the way up to number 20 on the NFL's top 100 players list for 2026, a ranking voted on entirely by the players themselves, which makes the recognition hit that much harder. Just 1 year ago, Cook was sitting at number 89. Now he's cracked the top 20, and honestly, after the season he just put together, it's hard to argue with the jump. Cook led the entire NFL in rushing yards, racking up over 1,600 yards on the ground to go with 12 rushing touchdowns. He earned second-team All-Pro honors and led the league in yards per game, averaging well over 90 yards a contest. His workload exploded too. He went from roughly 200 carries the year before to well over 300 this past season. And he didn't just handle the volume, he thrived on it, topping the 100-yard mark in 9 different regular season games. His signature performance came against, of all teams, Carolina, when he exploded for a career-high day on the ground that included a long touchdown run just shy of the longest carry of his entire career. And he wasn't just a runner, he chipped in nearly 300 receiving yards and multiple touchdowns catching passes out of the backfield, including a big performance against Tampa Bay. Then, when the postseason arrived, Cook kept the party going, rushing for well over 100 yards against Denver in the divisional round, the 10th time in his playoff career he's cleared that mark. Put it all together, and a number 20 ranking isn't just a nice pat on the back. It's a signal from his peers around the league that James Cook has officially arrived as one of the premier weapons in football. And when you stack Cook alongside Josh Allen, DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, and Keon Coleman, it becomes very easy to understand why there's a genuine buzz building around this offense heading into the season. All right, now let's pivot to the front office because this is where things get spicy. On the roster management side, Buffalo made a fairly routine move, signing inside linebacker Otis Reese IV and releasing fullback Jackson Akers to clear a roster spot. On its own, that's a standard training camp transaction, the kind of move that happens dozens of times across the league every August. But it's a reminder that every single job on this roster is being fought for, evaluated, and reevaluated as the season approaches. We'll see what Reese can bring to a linebacker room that's looking for depth and competition down the stretch. But that's the small story. Here's the big one. Buffalo could be circling back around to one of the most dominant pass rushers in the entire NFL, Raiders star Maxx Crosby. Buffalo was already known to be one of several teams monitoring Crosby's situation ahead of this year's draft alongside heavy hitters like the Cowboys, Bears, Ravens, Patriots, Eagles, and Rams. At the time, Buffalo held a pick in the mid-20s while Baltimore was sitting up in the mid-teens. And it was that Baltimore pick that briefly became the centerpiece of a blockbuster deal that would have sent Crosby to the Ravens. That trade was reported, it was agreed to, and then it completely fell apart after concerns surfaced during Crosby's physical, leaving the football world stunned and the Raiders holding on to their star for at least a little while longer. Here's why that collapse deal actually matters for Buffalo right now. The draft has come and gone. Buffalo no longer has to outbid a room full of teams throwing premium current-year first-round picks at Las Vegas. Instead, the conversation shifts entirely to future draft capital, and that includes Buffalo's 2027 first-round pick. League insiders have floated the idea that a post-draft Crosby deal could realistically involve a combination of 2027 and 2028 first-round selections, precisely because the current draft class is no longer in play. And that changes the entire calculus for a front office that knows exactly what's at stake. Because let's be honest about where Buffalo actually stands. Josh Allen is in the middle of his championship window right now, not in some hypothetical future. So the real question sitting on Brandon Beane's desk isn't complicated, even if the price tag is, how much is a player like Maxx Crosby actually worth when your quarterback is already playing at an MVP level? Picture it for a second. Crosby lined up on one edge, Gregory Rousseau lined up on the other. That's not just an upgrade. That's potentially one of the most terrifying edge-rushing duos in the entire league. Exactly the kind of consistent quarterback pressure this defense has been missing for years. Before this year's draft even happened, one national outlet floated a blockbuster package that would have sent Buffalo's own first-round pick, a future first-rounder, and receiver Keon Coleman out to Las Vegas in exchange for Crosby. That exact version of the trade is obviously off the table now since that draft pick has already been used, but the door hasn't closed, it's just been reframed. Buffalo could realistically construct an offer built around that 2027 first-rounder, additional future draft compensation, and possibly a player, depending entirely on what Las Vegas is looking to get back. The benchmark here is important too. Remember, the Ravens were willing to give up 2 first-round picks to get this deal done before medical concerns blew it up. That tells every team in the league, including Buffalo, exactly what price range we're talking about. But time changes things. Crosby's health situation is still something teams will want to scrutinize closely, and the passage of time since that failed deal could shift his value in either direction. What's working in Buffalo's favor is timing. Several of the other teams that were circling Crosby with premium current year draft capital have already made their own offseason moves elsewhere, potentially clearing a path for Buffalo to swoop in if Las Vegas ever decides it's ready to listen. Crosby remains under contract in Las Vegas for several more years, and the Raiders have continued to publicly express how much they value him. So nobody should expect this to be some quick, easy transaction. Las Vegas will still want a monster return. But if Crosby continues showing he's fully healthy through training camp, don't be shocked if trade buzz around him starts heating up again as the season rolls on. For Buffalo, the math is refreshingly simple, even if the decision itself is anything but. If this front office truly believes the championship window is open right now, and every signal out of One Bills Drive suggests they do, then trading future draft capital for a proven elite difference maker on defense is exactly the kind of aggressive, all-in move a contender should be considering. Nothing about this is guaranteed. Las Vegas has to actually decide it wants to move him. Buffalo has to decide the asking price is worth it. The medical situation has to check out, and Brandon Beane has to be willing to mortgage future assets for present-day glory. That's a lot of dominoes that all need to fall the right way. But given where Buffalo sits right now, no longer boxed out by other teams' premium current year picks, this is a storyline absolutely worth keeping one eye on all season long. So let's step back and look at the full picture, because when you add it all up, this is shaping up to be a genuinely fascinating stretch for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen and DJ Moore showed instant chemistry in their very first live action together. James Cook is being recognized around the entire league as one of its premier players after a monster season. The young defense is starting to flash the kind of talent that could turn Buffalo from good to genuinely scary. Joe Brady has his first game as a head coach under his belt, learning and adjusting in real time. And now, on top of all of it, there's a very real chance the front office could make one of the biggest defensive additions in franchise history if the Maxx Crosby situation ever breaks the right way. None of this guarantees a parade down Delaware Avenue. It's still August. There's a long, grueling season standing between this team and its ultimate goal. But make no mistake, the expectations in Buffalo have never been higher, and Bills Mafia isn't interested in close anymore. This fan base wants to finish the job. Josh Allen's championship window is open right now, and every single decision this front office makes between now and February is going to matter. The young players need to keep developing at this pace. The offense needs to stay this explosive. The defense needs to turn these flashes into full-season consistency. Joe Brady needs to keep growing into the leader this locker room needs, and if Maxx Crosby truly becomes available, Brandon Beane is going to have to decide just how aggressive he's willing to be to put this roster over the top. That's exactly what we'll be watching all season long. So Bills Mafia, I want to hear from you down in the comments. What impressed you the most from that Carolina game? Are you already dreaming about what Josh Allen and DJ Moore can do together this season? Do you think James Cook deserves an even higher spot than number 20 on that list? And if Maxx Crosby really does become available, what would you be willing to give up to bring him to Buffalo? Drop your thoughts below, because this community grows every time you speak up. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, do me a favor, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to Bills Nation Update. We are still a brand new channel building this Bills Mafia community from the ground up, and our first goal is 5,000 subscribers strong. If you truly believe this is finally the year Josh Allen leads Buffalo to the Super Bowl, subscribe and be part of this journey from the very beginning. This is Bills Mafia, and we are all chasing the exact same thing.